Time for culture clash now, and if ever there was an example of what sometimes amounts to the new po-faced puritanism that's been foisted upon us by the young and the woke, this is it. For today, it's emerged that staff at the Old Vic Theatre in London have had their say and decided they don't much like the views of the director of a musical, Terry Gilliam, no less, he of Monty Python fame. His thought crimes, to the minds of some staff at the venue, included enjoying the work of the comedian Dave Chappelle and wondering aloud if some innocent people had been caught up in allegations made by the Me Too movement, for which Andrew Doyle, he must be cancelled.
I don't mind it when these sort of things happen. Well, I obviously disapprove, but the more that these things happen, the more people will realise that there is a problem in the industry generally.
Because he's held in real affection and regard, isn't he?
Well, hugely, absolutely. And Terry Gilliam has a very sort of visionary view of the world. That applied to this Sondheim piece would be a very fascinating piece to see. And, of course, now theatre-goers have been deprived of the chance of seeing it, and I think a lot of people will be annoyed about that. But what's interesting about this is it came about because of complaints from members of staff, even some freelance members of staff, and they weren't happy because of Terry Gilliam's views. That has absolutely nothing to do... I mean, they're free not to like his views or disagree. It's got nothing to do with the production. And the fact that the Old Vic Theatre would now capitulate to a few members of staff who just didn't approve of him is a bizarre thing. And I don't think many people are going to be on side with this, or many people are going to be sympathetic to this decision. I mean, if you just look through social media, generally the feeling is the Old Vic have lost the plot here, and it's a bizarre idea. He's totally entitled to his viewpoint, but I think there is a problem within the theatre industry. The theatre industry is very much captured by this very narrow-minded, censorious ideology at the moment, and as a result, you have a sort of denuded theatrical landscape. And I think it works on three strands, really. Firstly, there's the people who commission theatre, who now seem to be more interested in the message that a play sends.
So if we're going to do Shakespeare at the Globe, it's got to be...
It's got to be reinterpreted. Yeah. We've got to be reminded about how evil and racist Shakespeare was in order to enjoy the play. And then you've also got the critics. A lot of critics are now reviewing work on the basis of whether or not they agree with the politics behind it. That's very boring as well. And then you've got artists and writers who are self-censoring because they're thinking, well, I won't get anything on. If I do anything remotely subversive, it's not going to go anywhere. And what you end up is a very anodyne theatre industry, which is producing boring work on the whole. You know, I'm an avid theatre goer, but I tend not to go now because I just don't want to be lectured at for an hour and a half about what opinions I'm meant to have.
I probably go less than you do, but the last 2 or 3 times I've been, it's just felt like a sociology lecture.
That's all it is. It's all it is.
And really
because everyone is in lockstep in terms of either because of what they actually believe or what they know is the high-status opinion that they should be expressing.
In the incredibly unlikely event of Julie Birchall watching, do come on, Julie. We'd love to talk to her about... She did a play.
Yes, she did.
She co-wrote a play which was on for not very long. It was about Brexit. About which she cares very deeply. And I don't know why the run wasn't long. You seem to do well in terms of bookings to start with, but maybe it just didn't fit. I don't know.
Well, I think you're going to get more and more theatres who are going to be bold enough to push back against this because it'll be popular. Because at the moment, you know, people love the theatre, but it feels a lot like you're going to watch state-approved art. It's that kind of bland, and we just want... The theatre should be exciting, should be subversive, should be pushing you in areas you don't expect. This stuff is very predictable, and you know, it'd be fascinating to see Gilliam take on Sondheim. That would be amazing, and I hope that another theatre will take it up.
By the way, I think you're wrong in just saying this is, and you know, it's not just theatre. I mean, publishing. I've seen several instances there of people quite junior in the office who say, actually, why are we working for a publisher who's publishing X? And then the boss, the whole hierarchy at that point dissolves.
It's bizarre that they have the power, though. Yeah. Because at that point, surely the boss should say, OK, well, if you don't like working here, don't work here.
Off you go.
Yeah.
We're going to reflect now on one of England's most beloved painters, depicting scenes of drunkenness and debauchery in the 18th century among all classes of society, and some images which wouldn't look necessarily out of place in... Who wrote this? In many of our town centres on a Saturday night in 2021. It wasn't me. But now William Hogarth, who famously painted this satirical portrait of married life, lots of others as well, Ginelli and Rake's Progress, is at risk of being cancelled. Curators at Tate Britain, which is exhibiting some of Hogarth's work, say the subjects of his paintings are, quote, drunk on the spoils of slavery, and that his work also depicts sexual violence. Of course it does, Andrew, it's Hogarth.
Well, it's Hogarth, exactly. I mean, it's interesting you say that about a night out. I remember going out in Ipswich on a Saturday night, and it was a bit like Gin Lane. It was a bit like that, you know, where people stripped to the waist having fist fights in car parks and things like that. You know, it's quite interesting. But I think there is something like... This exhibition, so this is the exhibition at the Tate, and again, it's this moralising, hectoring thing. You know, I do often get a bit annoyed by the explanatory cards next to works of art. Sometimes they can be really fascinating because they tell you something about the background, but it's when they tell you what to think about the art, or when they tell you, or when they, even worse, when they basically tell you what an evil person the artist was, or why we should disapprove.
It's a nice picture, but just remember that he was a complete so-and-so.
Exactly. And apparently on one of the self-portraits at this Hogarth exhibition, there's a bit talking about how the timber of the chair he's sitting on would have been sourced from colonialism, and therefore we should disapprove. Well, yeah, because this was the height of empire. What do they expect? Yeah. But it's a bit like going around an art gallery with Mary Whitehouse prodding you in the ribs, saying you should disapprove of this. I would suggest people go and see this exhibition, but ignore the explanatory cards. They'll have a lot better time of it.
Good night in Ipswich, was it?
Yeah. Oh, always.
Andrew, thanks a lot.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.